Hi there, everyone, and welcome to Paper Wishes Weekly Webisodes. I'm Sara Newman, and I'm so happy you're joining me for this episode of Saturday with Sara. Well, today we're playing with a fabulous collection of papers, stamps, and blank tags from our friends at Hunkydory. So as you can see here, we have a lot to explore today, and I'm so glad you're here. Come play with us. Let's take a look at the supplies we have to play with today. So I've got two paper pads for us to look at. The first one here is called Delightfully Distressed. So you can see here on the cover swatches of all of these beautiful designs. Now, when I flip over the paper pad, you'll see what will be on the reverse side of those same designs. So you're getting 48 sheets of 8x8 double-sided pattern papers with gorgeous coordinating kind of faux texture prints on here. Really versatile, really useful. These are great for backgrounds and lots of other things too. So this is the Delightfully Distressed paper pad. Now we have a second one, which is built about the same way, only this one is called Blooming Blossoms. Now again, double-sided, so here are those gorgeous flowers. When I flip this over, you can see that the reverse side is a really beautiful coordinating lace pattern. So again, when I open this up, you'll see some of those beautiful patterns in here. Again, really versatile and a lot of fun to play with too. So those are our two paper packs. Now we've also got 3 stamp sets. So let me show you these. These are all from the Stamp a Tag line. So we have Queen Bee, as you can see here, clear acrylic stamps. You've got a nice large tag-shaped image with beautiful detail work in here. Sentiments and some accent elements in here too. There's also the Clockwork Moments, which I think is really beautiful. And then we have Metal Blossoms too. So again, really gorgeous designs, super versatile and really easy to use. Now, last but not least, we have 2 packs of tags to decorate. I'm going to move these out of the way. We can take a look at these. Now, one is called the Essential Tag Pad, and this contains 100 Ink Me shaped tags. And Ink Me is just the kind of cardstock that's included in here. So you can see they are all blank tags. Now, this is going to be perfect for adding whatever kinds of coloring mediums that you like on here. And we're going to have some fun with some of the Prism ink pads. Then we've got another pack which has 50 craft cardstock tags. Of course, these are also perfect for decorating. So lots of fun that we can have with these. And they're definitely 2 really great essentials to have in your crafting stash. Okay, now that you've seen what fun items we have to work with, let's take a look at some techniques. Let's start with this super simple card design, which I think really shows how nicely these pattern papers come together. So here I'm using pattern papers from the Blossoming Bloom set, and it really couldn't be quicker or easier to put together a card. And sometimes a quick and easy card is just what you need. But of course, the benefit to this is that you've got some beautiful coordinating designs really ready to go. So you've got your floral and you've got your kind of faux texture, your lace pattern on here. Now you can combine those. You can also combine 2 florals together, of course, which is what I did for this card. So these are the 2 papers that I'm using here. As you can see, this all over design is my background. And then I've used a portion of this piece for my middle ground. Now, when you're putting pattern papers together, it really helps if you have some kind of contrasting border between the designs, and that really helps to create a visual space so it's not quite so overwhelmingly floral. So here's what I've done. First of all, I took my card blank and covered that with some of the all over floral design here, just trimmed around the outside edge. And then I cut a smaller section of the other floral design and just put it in the center. Now what you can do here is, if you want to, you can mat this piece onto maybe a white or a black or a gray cardstock for some real contrast. You could also ink around the outside edges, and that's what I've done here. So it does create some contrast between the 2 pattern papers quickly and easily. And to do that, I am using the Midnight Black. This is the Prism dye-based ink from Hunkydory. And all you need to do for this is simply edge around the outside. Just run that ink pad right along the edge of your paper. Now, one thing to take note of, this is a dye-based ink pad, which is great, and some of my favorites are from the Hunkydory range. The paper that we're working with has a slightly glossy texture to it, which means that you do want to give this a second or two to dry before you start handling it, but it does tend to dry pretty quickly. And then what I've done, you can see here, grab a piece of white paper and you can see the contrast there with that black inking around the edges. And then what I've done is simply pop this in the center. So there is some subtle dimension in here. Now, one thing I do want to point out, my butterfly is going kind of the wrong direction. Would be great if I was doing my card orientation this way, but I wanted it to go horizontally. So what I did is I simply covered up that butterfly with this strip of that faux texture lace pattern paper, mounted up onto some green faux lace texture paper, and then some white cardstock on here. And that's just covering over where that butterfly goes. And then what I've done is added my script dazzle on here. I've got a little gingham bow, and I've got my card front pretty much ready to go. Now for the card inside, I've got some more of that pattern paper and another dazzle sentiment on here. Now with the difference between these two pattern papers, I used the Thundercloud ink, and that gives a somewhat softer effect between those two patterned designs. So whether you go with something that's a little bit stronger like the Midnight Black or something softer like the Thundercloud, it really does help to have some dimension on there and a little bit of contrast. Now, as you can see, my card is a thank you card, but I really think this layout and the paper combination could easily work for birthday cards, anniversary, thinking of you, even sympathy cards. And it's really nice and I think pretty helpful for us card makers to have some go-to papers and layouts that work really nicely for a variety of different occasions. Okay, so now that we've seen how easy the papers can be put to use, let's take a look at some ways to incorporate stamping into our projects. This card features a stamped image as the card focal, and I'm using the Queen Bee stamp set. Now this tag on here fits perfectly onto the tags in today's collection too. And this works with either the white or the craft tags as they're the same size and the same shape. So let me show you. I'll take the white tag here and just kind of slip this underneath, and you can see just how perfectly that will fit right on here. And that's what I've done to create this card focal. So let me show you how I've done this. I'm going to move aside my card and bring in my well-loved Misty stamping tool. As you can see, it gets a lot of use. Now, one thing that I've done with my Misty is I took one of the grid papers that you get, and I've done a bit of laminating, if you will, with clear packing tape. So I've just applied packing tape, 2 strips on here, trimmed around the outside, and that gives me a slick surface that if I need to clean it up, if I get any excess ink or paint on here, it's just really easy to clean up. It also makes it really easy for me to secure papers in place. So whereas a magnet will not work if I'm trying to stamp a tag shape onto a tag shape, I can use Zots to hold it in place instead. So Zots are those little sticky dots that work perfectly for holding ribbons and bows in place, but they also work really nicely for securing paper onto a non-porous surface. So this way I'm not going to risk tearing this paper, and it also makes this a bit easier to get off. So I've applied a Zot here and here, not all over, just 2 little pieces. And then I'm going to pop this down here, make sure that you can see this okay, and just pop that down into place. Now I'm going to take my stamp and pull this off. Now, as you can see, this isn't going anywhere, so when I position this down here, I can make sure that it's going to be right where I want it to go. Okay, so I've got that in place there. Now, same process as usual, just close this up, and this will stay, and this will also cling on to the other side. Now I can go ahead and ink this up. And I'm going to use the Prism Midnight Black for this and just ink this up as I normally would. And then I'm going to stamp this in place. Get this nice and inky. And then simply close this up. Make sure that I'm able to put some pressure on here. I'm sitting quite far away from my Misty, so I'm coming at it from a bit of an angle. Press that on there and then lift this up, and there you can see I've got my design. Looks like I need to do a second pass on here. It's always a little bit easier if you can stand above your Misty or have it closer to you. So this is also another nice element of it, though, is that you can do this again and again until you get that perfectly stamped. Okay, and there we go. So there I've got my design. And now all I need to do is just lift this off. I'm going to do it gently. I don't tear too much of the back of my tag. And then I can take this little guy off. And then there we go. And then all I need to do is just clean off my stamp with a little bit of water or with a baby wipe, and it's ready to be used again. Now, the other thing too, if you find then with this technique is that you have a little bit of rough edges on here, the other thing you can do, because these are so perfectly shaped, is you can simply take another one and glue the two together. So if you have any little bits of torn elements on there from that Zot, then that's a good way to fix around that. Okay, so back to our card. Here what I've done is just simply added it onto the front of my card. And you can see I've layered it up with some of the Delightfully Distressed papers. Now both of these have been inked around the outside edges with some of the Midnight Black. Then I have the Kindness word stamped onto a strip of pattern paper. This is up on some foam tape and a little bit of a wave sort of positioning on here so that it looks like it has some movement on there. And then I've got a bow from the Dotted Ribbons ribbon pack up here at the top. Now for my card inside, I have more of the Delightfully Distressed paper, and I have a portion of one of the craft tags. Now this has a little bit of paper kind of rolled up. It's sort of flipped over so that you can see both of the patterns on that design. I have a script dazzle going across here and a stamped geometric shape as the tag topper. So as we've seen, you can layer the tag images onto the blank tags by stamping directly onto the tags, but you can also cut things apart to layer them. So here I've stamped the Clockwork Moments image onto paper from the Delightfully Distressed paper pack. And that's a big, beautiful tag image on there. And then what I've done is just used a pair of scissors to trim around the outside edge. So now I've got my tag, and the fun part here is that I could either put this up onto one of the white tags for some contrast, and that looks really nice. I could also put it onto one of the craft tags, and that's going to give me a more subtle effect there. Now, once I've got that on here, of course I could let the tag just be a tag, but I could also incorporate some pattern papers in here. So I've just pulled a collection of these, and I thought we could have a little bit of a play here. So I'm going to take my tag and put it onto this white tag here, and just have a look. We'll flip through a couple of these pattern papers. I think it looks gorgeous on this lace. Now the lace is from the Blossoming Blooms paper pack. So you can mix and match between the Distressed and the Blooms pack. So that's one with that beautiful lace. Here's another lace design, and that looks really pretty. Now you could also do this on that craft tag, and that's going to give you a different look. And let's see, we've got this. Oh, this is one of my favorite designs. This is from the Distressed pack, and I just love this. Just look how gorgeous some of those colors are in here, and this works beautifully with either white or craft. This is another really fun one. I love some of these patterns on here, this faux texturing, And this just has a really nice warm tone to it. And then our last one, this one is gorgeous. And of course looks great with the white tag, would also look great with the craft. So lots of different options that you have here. Now, of course, you can always just let the tag be a tag. So here I added some flat back pearls from the rainbow pack and a checked bow up here. Now on the back, so I've glued two of the tags together. On the back, I've got some more distressed pattern paper and I've got a script dazzle on here. So you've got some really nice options between tag making and card making. And this is something that would look great if you're just securing it on top of a gift package. Now another option here, your tag images are also easy to use in some other ways. So here I've stamped that same Clockwork Moments tag onto a craft tag, and I wasn't too worried about getting a perfect image. I really just wanted this clock on here, and then I used a pair of scissors to trim around the outside of the clock and glued it here to the side of a die cut rectangle. Now this card uses papers from the Blossoming Bloom set, and I've got the lace patterns here. I've also got some more craft paper on here, and then the two beautiful backgrounds. Of course, I've got some inking going around the outside edges to create some definition there. Then for the card inside, I have more pattern paper plus a craft tag that I cut down so it could fit horizontally across the inside of the card. I have another accent as my tag topper plus some more dazzles on here. So now that we've seen what we can do with the craft tags, let's look at the white tags because there's something really fun you can do with these and your dye-based inks. The white tags are made from a paper that Hunkydory calls Ink Me, which means they are perfect for inking, stamping, and blending. Especially great with dye-based ink pads like these ones from Hunkydory. Now, dye-based inks also work beautifully with water, and you can create some really fun and interesting watercolor backgrounds, as you can see that I've done on this tag here. Now, once I've done my tag, and I'm using the Ocean Spray and the Dusky Rose inks, I let that dry thoroughly, and then I stamped just a portion of this design from the Metal Blossom stamp set using the Midnight Black ink. So let's take a look at how to create this background effect on here. I'm going to move aside some things, and I'm going to grab a couple of my Ink Me tags. And I've got a stack of these because when you're doing this technique, it's always great to have a handful of tags because you can create lots of backgrounds. I'm working on my craft mat, and this is important. It's going to protect my work surface. It's also going to act as my palette. So I've got my two inks here. I also have my water mister on hand because I'm going to add a bit of water here too. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'll start with my Dusky Rose, and I'm just going to put a little bit of ink right onto my craft mat. So I've just pressed it right from the ink pad right on here. And then I'll come in with my Ocean Spray, and I'll do the same here. Now this of course works with any of your ink colors, so you can do some contrasting colors or go for tone on tone. Then I'm going to use my mister to just add a little bit of water here, and you can probably start to see how that ink begins to bead up a little bit. Now the more water you use, the more of a watercolor effect you're going to get, and the more those two colors will blend. I want to keep them separate for right now. I'm going to take my tag, and I'm simply going to press this right into the ink. So I'm pressing this on here, and then I'm going to lift up, and I've got my kind of faux watercolor effect on here. And then just set that aside and let it dry. Well, I've still got some more ink on here, so what I can do is grab another tag. I want to sort of swoop this up. I'm going to get kind of a blended effect. I've got some purple in there. If I want to, of course, I can add a little bit more color on here. If I want more of a monochromatic look, set aside this tag, spritz a little bit more. Now this is just the rose, and come in here, kind of swoop this up, and then I've got a really beautiful monochromatic effect. So as much or as little as you want to do, completely up to you. And then you can just clean up your craft mat with a baby wipe or a rag. Now, one thing you can also do, let's see, I've got one that I've done here earlier. This is already dry. You can also add in a bit of a spattered effect in here too. You can do this again with any of your colors. I like to use the midnight black because it creates some nice contrast. And again, just put a little bit of that ink right on here. In this case, I'm using a water brush. You can also use a paintbrush. And I'm just going to create a wash here. And then hold my brush perpendicular to my tag and spatter this on here. And that's going to give me another really nice effect. And there are so many different possibilities that you can get with this technique, with either of these techniques. So you can have some spattering, you can also have just some really beautiful watercolor effects. So these are all using the Dusky Rose and the Ocean Spray, as well as this one using the Midnight Black. So lots and lots of different looks that you can get. So let me show you again my tag here. So you do want to make sure that that is nice and dry before you stamp on top of it. But then I've just added a dazzle, script dazzle message on here. I've got some thin line dazzles just going across the corner down here and a bit of gingham ribbon up at the top. Now for my spattered tag background, I just thought, oh, I can add a simple stamped message on here and then some dazzles of butterflies. This one has been backed with a little bit of pattern paper. And then I've also got my beautiful butterflies on here and a little bit of ribbon up at the top. So you can get some really fun and easy tag designs, whether you want to put these on the front of a card or tie them onto a gift package. Either way is easy to do. Then that is going to finish up our projects for today's webisode. I think you can see that you're able to get so many different looks from today's collection. Let's see, I'll pop this up here. We can start to see all of the different looks that we've been playing with today. So these are all of our gorgeous designs. A big thank you to our friends at Hunkydory for, as always, providing such a fantastic assortment of papers and stamps and so many fun embellishments too. And a big thank you to you for joining me today. We're really glad you're here and we're so happy that you're part of the Paper Wishes family. Do feel free to leave a comment. We love to hear what you think. Each item can be purchased separately and you can see them below. However, we've also bundled them into a creative money saver just for you. For the money saver, just see this webisode on paperwishes.com. And if you're watching us on YouTube, have a look in the description box below this video. There you'll find a link that will take you to our Paper Wishes webisodes page, and you can see everything I just mentioned. If you enjoyed our video today, we'd really appreciate a thumbs up. It helps people to find our channel. And don't forget to subscribe. We create 3 to 5 videos each week, so there's always something fun to inspire your creative spirit.